Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Books I Love. I've been fortunate enough over the years to collect a lot of photography books and I am grinding my way through these one at a time. This week's book is Dancing on Fire, Photographs from Haiti by Maggie Steber, but I have a lot of background to give you before I do the top down and show you what I like about this book. So I need to take you back in time. 1990, I was a first year student at the University of Texas in Austin, photojournalism student. But I was a transfer student. I had spent the prior semester at a 2-year community college that just so happened to have this amazing journalism program where I was exposed to photojournalism. I was sort of recruited by one of their professors to become a photographer. I was given a scholarship. I was shooting newspaper assignments. I was freelancing on the side. And I decided, okay, photography was what I was going to do. My prior idea with life was to study geology, and I had a shooting scholarship, not cameras, shotguns. I was skeet trap, international skeet and trap, sporting clays shooter. I'd been doing this my whole life. And I was also recruited by another school, and they gave me a scholarship to do this. I would have traveled all over the world doing this kind of shooting. I didn't love it. I was good at it. I'd done it my whole life, but my heart wasn't really in it. Once I discovered photography, I took a right turn, ended up at UT Austin. But I had that dreaded mark of the transfer student. I had not devoted myself entirely from day one to the University of Texas. And so there was a bit of a stigma, if you will, about Uncle Dano here. So I went to look to register for classes and I saw that there was a guest instructor, Maggie Steber. And I was like, I'm taking that class. And these two faculty members were there, and I remember them kind of making this up on the spot. They were like, oh, you're a transfer student? No, you're not taking that class. And I go, hey, you guys are making that up. And they go, no, it's official rule. You can't do it. You're not allowed to take that class. So they wouldn't let me take the class with Maggie, but my roommate took it, so I got to live a little vicariously through him. At this point in my life, I just wanted to do long-form documentary projects. I wanted to be a photojournalist. I didn't really know exactly what that meant, but I would go to the half-price bookstore to the photo section, which was very small, and I would see books from like Abbas and Gilles Perez, and I would look at these things and be like, holy cow, this is what I want to do. So I got to live vicariously. I got to learn a little bit about Maggie through my roommate and hear what was going on in the class, and I started to hear about this work that she had been doing in Haiti. And that's what is in this book. But I have another quick story before we get to the book itself. So I know somebody who worked in Haiti at the same time as Maggie. They know each other. I don't know how good of friends they are, but I helped him move when I was in college. If you have a pickup truck in college, you're hosed because everybody's going to ask you to move 20 times. And so I'm helping this guy move, and I said to him, what was it like working in Haiti? And I remember this very distinctly. The very first thing he said was, the plane was empty when I flew in. And I think that's kind of an insider code for anyone who's done a project in a country that is suffering from unrest, if you will, where oftentimes civilians and tourists and everyday people are really not going into that country. They're trying to get out oftentimes. And this happened to me only a couple of times. Once, Cambodia 96, I remember distinctly because it was kind of hilarious. I was flying into Cambodia. I was a bit nervous. I was there to do some work for someone I'd only met one time, and it was a couple of weeks prior in the States, and then the second time I saw him was at the airport in Phnom Penh. I wasn't really sure what I was getting into. The Khmer Rouge were still active in parts of the country. I knew that it was dangerous even in Phnom Penh at the time, and so I was on the flight on the way, and it was basically empty, and I was trying to read to distract myself, and I looked down into the seat pocket in front of me, and there was a Soldier of Fortune magazine, which is not what they give out on the flight, by the way. And I pulled, like an idiot, I pull out the Soldier of Fortune, and the cover story is Nuns Under Fire in Cambodia. And I'm like, good God, what have I gotten myself into? It worked out. I'm still here. But the point is, it's kind of, that's sort of an interesting little insider code of like, okay, there's no one on the plane flying in. So let me talk a little bit about the book. The book to me is a classic piece of long-form reportage. I never get tired of this. When the work is good, and there is meaning behind what the photographer is doing, and there is intelligence behind it, and dedication and understanding of things like culture, society, history, language, etc., it's pretty wonderful. The book was published by Aperture Foundation, and this is an Aperture book. And for those of you who don't know, Aperture is a photo organization based in New York City. They publish all kinds of things, and they also do exhibitions about photography. They do everything they can to support photography. It's an organization worth knowing, and if you go to New York, get a chance, go to Aperture. It's definitely worthwhile. Let me give you a little background on Maggie. Maggie also went to UT Austin, and studied under Russell Lee and Gary Winogrand. And if you don't know those two gentlemen, might want to look them up because, man, I can't imagine going to school and studying with those two. She's also done bodies of work on the guerrilla war in Zimbabwe, done work in Cuba and Haiti, where she's worked steadily since '86. Her awards include, and write these down, Alicia Patterson Foundation grant. That's a good one. Ernst Haas grant. That's a good one. And the Leica Medal of Excellence. When you're talking about awards, those, at least they were at the time, I don't even know if those awards exist anymore, but those were 3 heavyweight awards. Those had resonance. If you won the Leica Medal, if you won the Haas grant, the Alicia Patterson, that was a significant achievement. These days, there's a prize and award every 5 minutes from organizations that no one's ever heard of. These were 3 things, which tells you any photographer that has sort of a background or a history in photography knows who's who, who's doing what. That is like, those are like medals on your chest, if you will. She's worked for the New York Times, Geographic, Life, etc. But there's also another part of this book that I think is very important for books on reportage and documentary photography, and that is who wrote the essay. Or the intro, or who is providing copy, a story, another name to put on this body of work. And in this case, it's Amy Willentz, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Wilentz. She's written for Time, The Village Voice, The Nation, Grand Street, and Newsday. She's the author of a book called The Rainy Season, Haiti since Duvalier, and translated Jean-Bertrand Aristide in The Parish of the Poor. I have read Rainy Season, and I read it back in the day when it came out, and that is a wonderful book of reportage. And that combination of Maggie and Amy together makes this book even better. But let me give you some production notes here on the back before we get to the top down. So I learned something about this book earlier that I didn't know, which kind of made me laugh. So this book also, in the production notes in the back, Maggie references getting support from Kodak. And it kind of chafes me a little bit when I hear modern people taking cracks at Kodak. Kodak has made a myriad of bad decisions over the past few decades. I worked there for 4 years. I saw it happen in real time. But Kodak also sponsored so many photographers and books and projects and exhibitions. It's kind of astounding. And earlier today, I was on a Slack conversation with someone who's older than I am, who's been around the photo industry even longer than I have. And he asked me if I knew someone in particular at Kodak back in the day. And I said, I'd never worked with that person directly, but he's a legend because he supported this, and this, all these people in projects. So it's good to see Maggie referencing here that Kodak helped out, I'm guessing, with film and materials. Copyright 91, Maggie Steber. Let's see here. Maybe it was 91 then when she taught at Texas. Whatever. She taught when I first got there. Okay, book jacket design by Roger Gorman. And I didn't know that. That's the part that I learned today. I was involved in a blurb project a couple of years ago, and Roger was the designer. He's a great designer, and I have 2 friends that know him really well, and everybody likes him. He's a really wonderful guy to work with and a great designer, so good to see. This was composition by Lee Sherman, Betty Type Inc., printed and bound, CNC offset printing in Hong Kong, so this was Hong Kong offset printed. She thanks the staff at Aperture. There's quite a few people here, including Michael Hoffman, Rebecca Bassell, Sarah Echaniz, Franny Rutherford, etc. And this is an Aperture book in New York. So let's take a top-down view, and I'll just give you a couple little things that I think make this book so great. But in essence, this book needs no explanation from me. This is a very straightforward book. This is someone saying, this is what was happening in Haiti, and these are really good photographs. All right, everybody, let's give a little info here about why I like this book and show how beautiful it is. So this is the cover, obviously, and what you've got here, it's a relatively simple cover design, but what's basically carrying this cover is how profound this image is. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with documentary work and reportage, an image like this and the rest of the images in this book, they are not manipulated, staged, or set up by Maggie at all. This is a person who is in tune with the environment, is fast enough, good enough, skilled enough to get these moments in real time. Once an image like this is gone, it is gone forever. My guess is she probably has maybe at the most 2 or 3 frames of this total. It's gone forever. You have to be ready. You have to be prepared. You have to have your exposures right, your cameras right, you're in the right position, you're framing right. This is incredibly difficult photography. I would call this reality-based reportage as opposed to constructed reportage like a portrait series, for example. Okay, let's move in. Nice end sheets here with artwork on the end sheets. You've got your little bios here of Maggie and Amy, who's the writer. Pretty simple. half title page. You've got a nice little saying or inspirational piece here. Now, for those of you who were around at the time, when you see an image like this and you see blacks like this and color and contrast, it signifies one thing. This was shot on transparency film. That is a very transparency or positive film look to these prints and photographs, which I personally love. Digital actually reflects this a little bit more than like a negative film would, but I absolutely love the richness. I love the fact that the shadow detail is for the most part entirely gone. I do not need to see it. I've always felt that way about photography, that the whole zone system and tonal range system is overrated. I love the way this looks. Here's your title page. It's an Aperture book. And here we go, right into the images. And again, this is a very straightforward reportage book. But if you look at the conditions that she's photographing in, you know, this is a tricky scenario. You've got wonderful foreground, direct eye contact with the photographer. The exposure is perfect. You've got a little bit of catch light in the eyes, which makes all the difference in the world. You've got a mid-tone guy in motion, and you've got your background of this burning, you know, action scene that's happening here. This is a tricky situation, not the easiest place in the world to work. Here's the essay from Amy, which is a really wonderful, wonderful essay. She's very much in tune with this country as well. And again, what I love about this is it reminds me of an era and a time photographically, in addition to the fact that these are good photographs. The paper that they're using is nothing super heavy, but it's a perfect combination of coat, of gloss, so it's got a little bit of sheen to it. Could be a luster, could be a semi-gloss style paper, which really brings out the color and the contrast, and the sharpness is pretty remarkable. If I had to guess, and I'm sort of, I don't know where I'm bringing this up from, but I think Maggie was an R series Leica photographer, and the only reason I bring that up is that the R series Leica cameras of the day, to me, still to this day, were the single sharpest lens set I've ever seen in my life. I had a friend when eBay came out who was a maniac that would just buy anything he could on eBay. And he kept buying these Leica R systems and using them. And I still remember the quality of that. And so when I see an image like this and the sharpness involved here, the contrast, the pop, it has a very specific look that I want to say was R Leica. Again, so now we're talking a little escalation here, if you will. I want to talk a couple of things about composition and about timing. First of all, look at where she is. This is a wide-angle lens. This is an authority figure here coming in with a club to basically try and beat this person here who might be trying to get under this or get out of here before he's trying to get something out. I don't know. This is a very tense situation. Not an easy place to work. Again, this doesn't come the first 5 minutes you get off the plane. You have to have an understanding of what's happening to be able to make pictures like this. Look at the compositions. Look at also the trickiness with the time of day she's photographing and the lighting conditions. Look at how close she is. You know, she's right on top of these people to have something like that so close in the foreground. You know, it's easy for me to sit here and say this is pretty straightforward design, but it's not. Every single position of the size of the typeface, the captions, the placement, it's really beautifully done. This is a book that makes it easy on you to engage with this project and this story. They're not hitting you with too much copy. They're hitting you with dramatic photograph after dramatic photograph. You know, this is, unfortunately, that's someone who's no longer with us. You might think that's an easy photograph to take, but if you have any kind of conscience, it's not. It's something that you have a huge amount of responsibility with when you're doing that. This person has a family, he has a history, and it's your responsibility to treat it with dignity. Again, another scenario, but look at this photograph. Foreground, look at the shadows as the midground. You've got the strong dynamic element of the road. You've got the drama of the fire, the color. This is really strong work. She's in and out of morgues. She's in and out of political situations with leaders of the country. Again, this is very difficult to navigate. There are, you know, here's a guard holding an Uzi, another Uzi. Again, I just absolutely fell in love with the quality textures of these images. Again, giving you a little information. The other thing you have to realize about a story like this and a book like this is it's not that the American public is screaming to know about Haiti. You know, we like, you know, streaming services and fast food and things like that. And doing a project like this year after year after year, you have to be more than committed, because oftentimes you're met with resistance on the home front in terms of people saying, well, you know, yes, we know there's something happening in Haiti, but are people interested? Do they really want to know? That drives me crazy. And it's people like Maggie that go into the field, anybody who's out doing long-form reportage like this and telling stories that potentially the world doesn't want told. It adds to the drama and the degree of difficulty for sure. All right, I'm just going to skip through here a little bit. This is obviously, these pictures are beyond solid. They're beautiful. They show a point of view. They show someone who is very much on top of their game. Great layering, great texture, great compositions. And that's it. And you've even got, you know, pictures. She's right on top of the leadership here in the country. Again, if you don't know, there's a little strobe popped in on this. And so you're shooting transparency film in shifting lighting conditions, going from bright Caribbean sunlight into deep shade with someone wearing a white suit. This is not easy. Just the technical side of a picture like this has to be respected, because it's not easy. So anyway, that in a nutshell is what this book looks like. And if you can get your hands on a copy of this, it's a great place to start, especially if you're interested in long-form reportage. And congrats to Maggie, even though this came out a long time ago. It's always good to tip our hats to people who were successful in getting a project like this published. You made it. You made it through another episode of Books I Love. Take the rest of the day off. If you need me to call your boss, I'll call him. I'll send him an email. I'll text him. I'll Slack him. Send him my Instagram account. Okay, thanks again for tuning in. I don't know if this book is out of print, if you can still get it, but if you want a book of classic, wonderful reportage, then this is a good place to start. And also, if you want to read something by Amy Willits, this is a really good place to start as well. So thanks again for tuning in.